All right. Well, happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, April 10th, and we're here live on YouTube with Cari Bartholomew and Christine Sefein Wolk. And we've had a lot of new subscribers to the channel recently. So if you are interested in more of these conversations, we've had a series of conversations going back over the past year or more, and so you can search this channel and find more of these chats if you'd like to go back and rewatch or listen for the first time to some of those. I am Leslie Elliott Boyce, and I've been doing this for I guess about a year and a half now, and I had the good fortune of meeting Christine pretty shortly after, right away, actually, after I started doing these. We connected because you had a similar story, but from a different angle. I was a student and you were a professor, and we were both encountering this in the psychology academic program that we were in. And Cari, we met oh gosh, I guess we met right after this too, because you reached out to me after I did my first video. And so we connected really early on as well. And so we're happy to have you guys join us. If you have any questions or want to chat with us, feel free to use the live chat feature while we're live. And Cari, you had some specific things you wanted to share today, so I'll let you take it away.
Right. Well, we're starting this process of really deep diving into ethnic studies, to specifically liberated ethnic studies, and stumbled across a page that is called Liberated Ethnic Studies, and it has all of their standards. So I think it's important that people recognize what it is, because everything that's happening today is couched in words that that pacify, I guess you would say. So everything is just couched in, well, what's wrong with
Euphemism.
ethnic studies, right?
Yeah.
So, or like I said before, resilience, all sorts of words, transparency, even, like all of these words mean something different than we think they do. And so we open up the doors to them. And we are opening up the doors, in my opinion, to the demise of our country by the things that we're teaching, which sounds super crazy. Sounds like, well, let's put on a foil hat. But that's why I like having these discussions, because we can actually go to the sources.
And this is for K through 12 education right now. You're
K-12.
talking about, okay. Do you want me to share the
Yeah.
document that you sent, or the website you sent? Let's see. Hold on, let me find it real quick. So you want to say a little bit more about how did you come across this?
Well, because I've got this book that I've been studying on ethnic studies, and it's been very shocking. And I just recently stumbled across the original objectives for Common Core, which when my son was born is when Barack Obama came into office. This is not about left versus right. This is just, that's the time, and that's who brought this to the forefront. So Common Core came in, and we thought, we're just teaching math in a way that people across, basically across the world can understand, because the goal is ultimately global citizenship. And like I said, we'll find it right here as we start looking into, these are just the standards of comparison of multicultural education and ethnic studies.
Okay.
So I think a big question to ask is multiculturalism the way that is that a thriving way for a society to be? So yeah, here's the beginning pages: comparison of multicultural education and ethnic studies framework and pedagogies. Multicultural education, so we're focusing on all marginalized communities.
Who is this program? This is interesting. So they have up here who we are. I'm just curious for more context on this. So who's using this curriculum right now?
These are where the standards are coming from for our different schools. So the book I have, this is where it originates. It's activism all the way through.
So this is just their background, and they've all got their special interest groups that are based on ethnic background.
So what we're losing is a centered culture. We're not being taught what unites us as Americans. Instead, we're being taught um to celebrate and to focus on our different groups. And it is extremely, just in the little pieces that I was looking at, it is extremely anti-white, which
I
I don't
can't with the
understand.
Latin X. My gosh, I'm sorry.
I
That's
know.
just,
I
it
see
just
this also here.
twists me. Yes, and now it's Chicon X.
I
It's
don't.
it gets me all twisted up. Continue,
Right?
Cari.
What'd you say?
I said continue. Sorry, I think I
No.
interrupted you. I
No,
saw it twice, and then I saw the Chicon X, and it's like when people from their own background are saying that doesn't represent me because it's not even a word in my language, that's very distressing.
right.
So I want to ask you a question, Cari. Who do you think, I mean, who are the targeted victims of all of this? Why are they targeted? What is the end game? Because we're seeing all of this, and I know that there's some bigger connection to being a global citizen, but what does that mean exactly? What is it that they really want to see happen by doing this divide and conquer kind of?
Well, that's exactly it, to divide and conquer, to other each other. Because
Uh-huh.
what happens when we adopt these ideas is that these groups will come together in quote unquote solidarity.
Yeah.
But then once they've gotten their access to the table, then what happens is that everybody wants to be the main group.
Yes.
So then they divide themselves.
Yes.
So liberated ethnic studies rose from the ashes of civil unrest. Okay. And there was civil unrest, but why are we perpetuating it?
Right.
I sent you guys a picture on Monday of a protest happening or video, I guess, of a protest happening at one of our colleges. And the reason it happened at our colleges is because Michael Knowles came, and Michael Knowles spoke. His presentation, I believe, was called "No Child is in the Wrong Body." Was "No Child is Born in the Wrong Body." And these kids are empowered to do this. They are absolutely empowered to choose a protest strategy, and that is really the main focus. They'll say, well, so like Common Core, for an example, Common Core is it's sold as, let's get all kids into college. Okay. But what they don't tell you is that the college that they're aiming for is not the highest level of college. The college that they're aiming for is 2 years of a community college. What I'm seeing in community colleges is disturbing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of just wanting to put a finer point on this. Like this seems like real activist curriculum, but is it actually being adopted in school districts, or is this just something that people are trying to get adopted?
Right. Well,
I think it's been adopted in some, I would say.
Okay.
I would say LAUSD in Los Angeles, LAUSD has adopted some of this. And the reason that I'm pretty confident about that is that when I was working in my previous position at FAIR, we used to get a lot of, parents and teachers that would come to us just desperate for help. And so I saw hundreds and hundreds of pages of curriculum that was being pushed through the Los Angeles school district, which is one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one in the United States.
Well, look at this. It says this is for grade level 3rd through 6th, which is what, 9 years old through 12-ish,
Yes.
11, 12. And I can identify my intersectional identities and affirmative counter narratives to dominant narratives in media, society, and community.
Yes.
What?
I don't even
I know what
understand the sentence.
I know what intersectional identities are. That's the oppression categories. That's how oppressed are you are you oppressed or marginalized in these demographic areas that we assign you?
Yeah.
And affirmative counter narratives to dominant narratives in media. So
like I can identify
affirmative
them?
counter,
Yeah.
I don't think that the sentence is written correctly.
Yeah, it's weird.
And affirmative counter narratives to dominant narratives, meaning that I can argue with people basically who rely on logic.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. And then unit enduring understandings alignment. Do these people
self?
Oh, racialized. I did this too. I looked at it and saw radicalized the first time too.
Isn't that funny? It's racialized. Oh
Christine,
but it might as well be
your audio is a little muffly. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably just here.
Oh, that's better already.
That's a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Racialized self. I understand my racialized self, the complexities, the intersectionality, and beauty associated with it. Okay, so they throw in that word beauty, but who gets to be beautiful? Because we had to increase clients' racial identity salience as counselors. That's what we were being trained to do. But you certainly weren't supposed to appreciate anything beautiful about anybody white.
What was their? What does that mean? What does that mean to
increase their racial identity salience?
Yes.
Make them more aware of oppression and oppressor in relationship to their race. Make them feel like they had, like their race was basically a conglomeration of different stereotypes.
So did they include the Irish and what they went through when they got here?
I think that they might tell you if that's something that you want to talk about, you can talk about that. But at the end of the day, they would just answer no. Okay, well, you benefit from your white privilege. So that's interesting, but it doesn't change where you fall on the intersectionality scale.
What doesn't make sense to me is that when the Irish got here, they were on the same signs. It would say no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. But we don't have that conversation. There's so many conversations that we don't have. We don't have the conversation that within the Black community, people feel differently based on the shade of your skin.
That's how it is, and that's how it is being Indian. That's how it is being Middle Eastern. That's if you're Indian, if you're Southern Indian, you're considered less attractive than if you're Northern Indian because you have fairer skin. These are things that are happening within these cultures. It's very nuanced and it's very brushed over. It's not a broad brush that you can actually use, and that's what these particular things seek to do. I mean, they're trying to divide, conquer, yes, all of that, but they're also trying to water down what some of the bigger issues really are, and within cultures itself, that you can't just throw a Black person into the Black culture, into the Black group and say you're Black, so that's that, because there are multiple shades within Black culture, right? And I don't purport to be an expert on this, but anecdotally, I can even share from people that I've known over the years that have experienced, the lighter the skin or the darker the skin, there's a certain way in which you're being treated, whether you're Black enough or not Black enough, or too Black, etc.
And it goes different ways in different categories. So
correct.
If you're with certain people, they look at my skin tone and they treat you better. And then you go to other ones and they treat you terrible.
Yes. And it's like that in the Middle Eastern. I grew up in my family, half my family has fair skin and light hair because they're Syrian. So I come over here with the Egyptian side is my father's side, and we're darker and we have darker features. And so half the family's like, gee, I only wish I could have a nice tan like you. And of course they're just joking. And then the other half is like, well, gosh, you know what? Despite the fact that you're darker than us, you're still attractive. You're lucky, because that was really going against you for a while. So even within my own family, right? So this is all very much watered down and not something that necessarily belongs in a study with 3rd to 6th graders or for any K through 12. I don't see what we gain from it. That's the thing.
They're colonizing us.
Yes.
They're flat out colonizing our kids.
Well, one thing I'm wondering as we look at this thing, I'm going to scroll back up. I don't want to do this too fast and hurt people's eyes if they're trying to read it. But they talk about dominant narratives quite a bit. What are the dominant narratives, the affirming narratives, and the counter narratives? But this is public school, which means that it's a government program. And so,
Yes.
as a government program, what is
How can I
their
heal from harmful
agenda?
media? Oh, their
You
agenda
know, I
again.
mean, they seem like they have there's some need
That's
to
what I was
clarify this.
kind of trying to ask too, is that
Yeah.
what is the agenda, what's the end? But it's to divide and conquer, I think, is what you were saying, Cari.
That's what, if you look at what they're actually doing, that's what you come up with. But
Yes.
I'm wondering what's their stated, what do they think that they're doing when they
Global
do this?
citizens.
Yeah, okay.
Global citizens
But then
is the goal.
And
who's
that has come up
dominant?
from the higher ups, and we're talking about, this is where you cannot separate, you can't divorce the political kind of spectrum or the political agenda from these educational agendas. They go hand in hand. They're lockstep.
Yes.
That's
Well,
scary
I guess
phrase.
this
Big daddy
dominant thing,
government.
if you're
Yes.
dominant enough that you have been able to put a curriculum in front of all of the school kids of a country, aren't you the dominant narrative at this point? And so
this is what I'm saying when I say they're colonizing us, because they're
stop the share for a little bit.
constantly, they're always projecting, right? There's always this, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. Meanwhile, you're watching going, wait a second. I just had a parent call me and say, I went into my son's 4th grade class and I assist with reading. And so I'm reading this lesson to the 4th graders, and they have to read about how the white man took from the Native American. And so it's very specific. White people did this. White people took our moccasins and put us in black shoes. White people made us go to their schools. White people, white people, white people. Is it true? Yes. How do we fix this so that the kid doesn't internalize the guilt? If that was the goal, you give the person a name.
Mm-hmm.
You say, Mr. Smith came and he took away my shoes. Mr. Smith did this. Mr. Smith did this. But that's not the goal. The goal is to get these kids to internalize guilt in 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the problem comes from, because it's like, how do we fix this? Well, we tell the truth, absolutely. But you don't push your narrative onto these kids unless it's intentional. And it is. That's the whole issue, is that this stuff is intentional about making our kids feel sick about who they are. I felt sick reading those things. Literally, I feel like I want to throw up reading what they want to impose on our kids because they believe they have insight.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder how many parents are aware that this is how their children are being taught.
We actually have somebody following right now who is one of my delegates. And I said, well, I'm happy to explain it, but you can just jump on and watch. And I sent her the link. So I think she's following, but they don't know. They don't know because they're told, and this is part of Common Core. Common Core literally put into their systems that the state school board will make these standards, then they will kick them down. When parents ask them questions, they'll say, well, that's local, that's a local issue. And then the local issue will say, I can't do anything about it because that's the state school board. Kick the can. Meanwhile, this is what our kids are getting without anybody recognizing that this is what they're getting, except for the activist teachers. They know what they're doing. The rest of the people are like, I think I told you, I don't remember, but I had a call from a teacher about a month ago or in February. And she said, I don't know how to teach this lesson without turning my 3rd graders into activists. And go ahead. Yes.
Is there any more on that particular page that you want to share?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure we can go through it a little more slowly. And
I put the link in the chat so that people could see it if they want. Yeah, there's land acknowledgements and Benjamin wants to know if I want more coffee. Yes, Benjamin, if you're still there, I'll take more coffee. So you sent a couple of other ones as well.
Yes.
Do you want to go into those, or do you want to go back into Liberated Ethnic Studies?
Let's go back into Liberated.
Liberated. Okay. So let me go back into that for us. And so if anybody's watching or just listening, because I will put this up on a podcast app as well, you can find the links if you want to look these over. I'll make sure that they're in the description of the video or the podcast.
I mean, even the fist in the air, that kind of image is very aggressive. It's very violent. And it reminds me of the way that, Hail Hitler. I mean, it's sort of like this, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's kind of what that reminds me of, that aggressive. It reminds me of a movement
Right.
during World War II, right?
Well, this is Mao's Cultural Revolution that you're
That's
seeing.
what it is. It's Mao's Cultural Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the words.
And looking at the symbology there too, of that image right there.
Yeah.
I mean, what's present there? We also see a rainbow with angles. So that looks like the trans, it's representing the trans flag.
Yes.
And thank you so much. And there's also the words "not a virus." Like those are the only words in that image. What does that mean?
Are you guys looking at something different than I am?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't see that on here.
You don't see that? Okay, what am I showing you guys right now? Let's see. Let me see. I'll stop this and share
what
a
I
different
have
thing.
up is the sunrise movement. That's what
okay. I was trying to show you this one here. Let me do it again. Boom. Do you see
There
that?
you go. Yes.
I don't see the rainbow still, but
do you see her earring?
Yeah. Okay.
There's that, and there's on the shirt.
Yeah, and not a virus.
There's not a virus.
What does that mean?
But you know what's interesting? None of them have faces. If they're so interested, none of them have faces at all. These are people that don't have eyes, they don't have a mouth, the only thing is a little nose to distinguish that it's supposed to represent a person. But that to me is also kind of creepy in its own way, that they don't have any identities.
It's collectivism. They are a collective.
Yes.
I think we should go through this just like really slowly and look at what their objectives are. I know there's one page that was specifically their objectives.
Okay, let's see. Should we go up to home?
Yeah.
Our story, associations, past events.
No, curriculum. Maybe
curriculum. Principles, ethnic principles.
No, let's go. Well, we could go into an intro to ethnic studies and just we could try principles. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Well, I don't see the intro to ethnic. Oh, up here. This is the one we were looking at a minute ago. We could go back to that if you want, or we could do this.
Yeah, let's go to principles.
Okay, principles. Guiding principles. See. What is holistic humanization? Do they identify that?
I believe that's introducing
glossary
to schools.
Okay, well, acculturation.
Ableism.
Process of taking on another group's culture.
Yeah.
Okay, accompliship.
I don't mean to laugh. This is serious, but it's just come on.
No, they make up words then they're trying to teach kids.
Think about an evergreen when
humanistic is what I was looking at for.
At Evergreen State College, when they told the kids to go out and buy them McDonald's, they basically treat them like they're slaves, and then they said, wait, you don't get to eat, but then wait, and then you have to clean up after us.
I mean, that's just sick.
Humanization.
Definition of the dignity, rights, all human qualities of person. Humanization occurs when power is used to offer opportunity to people.
I know, I saw that. I just looked at that one.
Do you see this thing?
Oh, Hicks story.
And they say it's pronounced herstory. So they're changing the pronunciation of the letter X as well.
Yes.
Herstory. They actually want kids to say herstory. Okay. It's more gender inclusive perspective. So they rewrite history.
Yes. The X is used to disrupt. There's the word again, the D word, disrupt.
Yeah.
The often rigid gender binarist approach to telling history. It's funny, they use so many words that sometimes it's hard for an educated adult to understand what they're trying to say, and they're giving this to a third grader.
The qualities, expressions, beliefs, physical physical traits, cultures, and social statutes that comprise a person and or group of people. But let's be clear, there's a huge difference between an individual identity and a group identity. And what they mean when they say they want you to talk about your identity is your group identity.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. I wonder what the old-fashioned definition of identity is. Does our
There is one in psychology.
okay.
I won't be able to remember kind of what, but it is comprised of the way that it's comprised of, your own personal, I think it's more about your own personal, how you would describe your identity, what matters to you in relationship to the people that are in your same group, people that are in out group or that are in other groups. It's not given in such a specific, but also broad context like this.
I know.
Hybridities. Okay. I know we could do this
Some
all
people
day
are going to
long.
say, because identity is personal, and some people are going to say, I don't identify with being a Middle Eastern woman. It's not part of my identity because I don't really practice the cultural, practices that Middle Eastern women, do.
And you're not allowed
so therefore, right.
They don't want assimilation. They do not want assimilation.
They don't want
assimilation
whatsoever. And that's exactly what the immigrant story is actually about, is assimilation to an extent, quite frankly. Because if you're coming to the country as an immigrant because you appreciate the values of the United States, and to some degree you have to assimilate those values into your own cultural practice. That is the way that you become American, if this is what you seek to do when you come to the United States. And that would be the case if you go to the UK, if you go to some countries, I mean, anywhere that you want to immigrate to. That's part of why people are immigrated, is because you align with the values of that particular country. Some of that is missing, and it's not some of it. It's missing in that it's not really, it's frowned upon now if that's what you want your family to do. It's frowned upon that my parents said, assimilate as much as you can so that you can kind of click and fit in. This is why we're here. That is looked upon as being very negative now.
Yep. I'm wondering about Islamophobia. I'm wondering if Christophobia is in the definitions.
Oh, we could look it up. Probably not.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point this out. I mean, maybe it's quibbling, but it's really weird that they get to define in different places how to pronounce their neologisms.
Yeah.
Like we've got herstory with an X, but also Latin X. It's not Latiner or Latine.
Right.
It's going to have its, and so you kind of can't know. It's like a secret code that you can't know unless you're one of their cool kids. Yeah. So sorry for your eyes, everybody. I'm scrolling back up. I'm going to look for I'm going to see if Christophobia is in here, which it's not going to be.
I'm sorry, but when I look at some of these definitions, I think of people who are stoned out of their mind.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can see with some of these.
I mean, but I was watching a TV show on Netflix. It's just kind of
demographic imperative.
And it's a TV show about, doctors or whatever in the ER, okay? Like one of those high, fast-paced, whatever. And they're having this gender reveal party for one of the characters. And somebody at the party's like, what does it matter? We all know gender's constructed, socially constructed, so it doesn't really matter. And I thought, I mean, the fact that it's oozed out into mainstream television, mainstream, which I don't watch a lot of, by the way. I really do not. But there was that, and there was a discussion about systemic racism at the hospital, all in the same episode. And I really thought, I have to turn this off. The stories were compelling that had nothing to do with that. I wasn't watching it for that. But then I had a little bit of a history and civics lesson that they were trying to kind of filter through. So it's really everywhere. I mean, it's at the schools, but it's also spilled out now into the greater communities. When you're seeing the entertainment industry absorbing this and sending it back out again, they really want to make sure they catch you everywhere. We want to catch you while you're watching a TV show on, a Tuesday night or whatever, trying to relax.
Can we go up to I'm sorry, can we go up to culturally responsive and relevant teaching?
Yeah, here we are.
This one
You want to
really,
read that out loud?
culturally responsive, relevant teaching, a student-centered pedagogy that is grounded in cultural competence. This method of teaching stresses the importance of educators being culturally sensitive and actively working to include part of their students' unique culture and backgrounds to all aspects of teaching and learning.
Hmm.
This is upsetting.
Yeah. Does anybody remember the definition of cultural competence?
No.
I'm gonna look it up and see if I can find it.
Okay.
It's I think it's a Daryl Wing Sue creation. Let's see.
That's been around for a while. The first time I heard the term was when I was doing my internship in 2007 about cultural competence. So that's been around for close to 20 years now before we really started to highlight it.
The first time I saw this was on a teacher's desk. A special ed teacher, and she had 2 books on her desk on culturally responsive teaching and 1 book on how to teach politics when you weren't supposed to in her classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And my issue here is that my district is very much like just almost divided with Hispanic people and Caucasian people, with a little scattering of mostly adopted and some interracial Black and white couples, but that's it, right? And I think there might be there's a few Asian families, but it's so small that it's noticeable. But when you're teaching these kids with such a blanket, such a thing over them, saying that this is how you have to learn because you're of this culture, when they're neighbors to each other, they're best friends to each other, and instead you're infusing this stuff into them that they might not even know about. There was I know somebody whose high school son, the teacher would just constantly call on them and want to know about their culture and everything else. And the kid played it. The kid completely played it up and did what he needed to get an A. And on his final paper, he said, "You want to know my culture? My culture is baseball. My culture is, apple pie. And this is literally what my culture is. You've thrown this on me.
Yes.
You've made something that isn't who I am. I was born in America. I'm an American. These are my values."
Yes.
And the fact that the arrogance of throwing people into something, that doesn't mean that you're ashamed of your culture, but you don't get to decide. If you have a little girl who comes into class and she wants to wear flowers in her hair and thinks that she's, that Disney character, whatever, that's fine. That's who she is. That's her identity.
Well, that's
Look at
the whole
critical
thing is
consciousness.
yes, the identity is defined in terms of how you define it for yourself. I mean, that's the whole.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's interesting.
Colonialism, the practice of domination whereby one country seizes control over another country or territory and its people via force, exploit. You can't even read it without laughing because it's exactly what they're doing.
It's what they're doing. Yeah.
And we teach that the United States
no
started off with
Christophobia.
13...
We got all the way back up.
Oh, no Christophobia.
Of course not.
This heteropatriarchy.
For 3rd to 6th graders.
Cisgender.
Heterosexual men.
For 3rd to 6th graders.
Okay, now if we're going to get to all these other things, we better get to them. So let's see what else. We were in the principles. Do you want to look at more of these principles?
Sure.
Critique empire, white supremacy, anti-blackness, anti-indigeneity, racism, patriarchy, cis-heteropatriarchy, capitalism, ableism, anthropocentrism, and other forms of power and oppression at the intersections of our society. Okay.
The very annoying thing about all of these are that these are heavily funded by very, very wealthy people who have no intention of being equitable with the rest of us.
This is interesting. Yeah. For example, historic and contemporary travel brochure images.
What? Oh,
or other advertising field that stereotypes BIPOC in order to identify how the tourism industry exploits and stereotypes BIPOC for profit.
Yeah, that's pretty specific, huh? Strangely specific.
So now, can I be considered some sort of a racist or some sort of a who knows what if I decide that I want to go to an island where most of the people there are dark skinned, but the beaches are beautiful and that's where I want to spend my vacation? I mean, is that a problem?
Yeah, probably. You're probably like
Is it an
exoticizing them or something.
yes, right. Or is
Oh.
it a problem that their particular communities thrive and survive only on tourism? So actually it's helping their
Oh.
economic situation to actually have tourists come and spend money in their communities. I mean, that's it's ridiculous. I mean, it's probably not really even a big deal compared to the other things here that are worse, but
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to infuse. I guess my point is this is being infused in every area of your life. It's not
Yes.
just in
Yeah.
activism at school. It's not just in activism in under political context. Now we're talking about a travel brochure
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, can label you as a bigot because you decide, and you know, in the travel brochure, everybody that's on there is, you know, a couple of them are white tourists, a couple of them are indigenous people, a couple of there's a bunch of different people on a brochure, and now based on that, that determine where I go for vacation, what I guess, and I'm rambling here. My point is, it's infiltrated into every single area now. Like we're so far beyond what they're doing at school that
Mm-hmm.
we're now in other areas of
Yes.
just the community at large. Okay, this
Yes.
is with adults, with everybody. It's that bad, and I think been a runaway train for the last 20 years, but a lot of people were not paying attention.
What is
That's
critical
how we're
hope?
here.
What do you think critical hope means?
Critical hope. Well, if
You see
critical
that
is a
phrase?
power, is critical is always used to define power, that something's in a power structure, then hope can be in, so there's hope for certain people in power and not, and no hope for those who don't have power. That's what I would assume.
I
Since
think that
critical is
it
supposed to
means,
be power, about power.
I think that it basically comes back down, it comes to reimagine.
Mm.
If you can look at things and see their problems and reimagine a world where we're all equal in a perfect utopia, then that would be critical hope. You see, you're constantly pointing out what's wrong in a
Yeah.
situation,
Mm,
but you're also going, and once that's gone, or let's be clear, once they're gone, then we can get to our utopia.
It says, for example, after researching segregation within or between schools, which would have been past,
Right?
students write and make public comments at their school board meetings with recommendations for racial integration policies to build new possibilities for resisting white supremacist schooling structures. So this is
Me,
pulling students into the past and telling them to be enraged about
yes,
something that isn't happening anymore.
yes.
correct.
And meanwhile, while they're both saying we want integration, we are having in our K-12 schools, in some districts, come join your affinity group.
Right. And that's the only place we're really seeing racial segregation is the schools are imposing racial segregation. I mean, I saw it at the graduate level when we were put into white accountability groups and black or BIPOC affinity groups. So,
Gross.
They're
Gross.
seeing
yeah,
that in the corporate world too. So
this cultivate
Ooh,
empathy, community actualization, whatever that is, cultural perpetuity, self-worth, self-determination, and the holistic well-being of all participants, especially Native peoples and people of color.
holistic
Can you imagine?
well-being,
Yeah.
it's anti-individual faith group. It is
Yeah.
it is to create a new way of believing, a new way of worshiping. What it often comes down to is self-care. They say that this is the way that you practice self-care. Well, some people that would consider themselves Christians are not at all interested in yoga, but they're doing yoga in our schools. So, and there's
What?
no,
well, they're doing yoga,
yeah,
they're doing mindfulness practices,
yes,
meditations, things that they're not,
mindfulness is huge right now.
yeah, and they're
Oh
not
my
necessarily
goodness.
qualified to do that. Those are interventions that are used in psychotherapy.
right?
It's like a whole curriculum that's made of rage bait.
Yes.
It's like trying to get people upset. This is under that same that
Yeah.
tab of curriculum, and it's called Community Couch Time. Oops, I don't know why that won't go away. And it links to their YouTube, and they've got a YouTube and an Instagram where you can look at their stuff, and just beautiful white co-conspiratorship. They're trying to enlist kids to be conspirators, and this is your government trying to tell kids to be conspirators. I think you should be a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
If this is being pushed through the public schools, then it would be
Right.
that. And I don't know that it is, but it sounds like you two are saying that this has been adopted in some places.
Yeah, definitely it's been adopted in LAUSD. The first time I saw the marginalization wheel, is that what it's called, the big wheel that has
Mhm.
like all the way, it was actually in some documents and some curriculum documents at LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District. That was the first time I ever saw it. So this is
Right.
being adopted on a broad scale.
Can you go
So
back up to what does that say about white privilege?
yeah, it says white privilege is your history being part of the core curriculum and mine being taught as an elective.
Ah,
It's just not correct.
Okay.
I've
not
never
correct.
seen books that only feature white people.
I don't recall that ever being the
So
case either.
I'm mindful of time. I know, Cari, you've got to go really soon. So
Yeah.
I want to I'm going to stop this real quick, check in on the chat, and then if you want to look at any of the other links that you've sent, we can do that. Yeah. What do you guys think about all this so far? It's pretty crazy. The Clue Channel says, I saw a Disney World ad where the white families took photos with a white character and the black families took photos with a black character. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Invisible says it's in all the curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
and then says, I guess his or her kid was in a charter school and they pulled their kid out.
Yes.
That's good. I know. And
We
they
have
say that
family,
they're feeling lost.
yeah, we have family
Yeah.
friends who are in charter schools as well out here that are basically writing their papers to express what the teacher wants to hear, not what they really believe at home. And they're doing that so they don't get F, so that they don't get retaliated against. They're trying to get into college and they're
It's
high
called approved
schoolers.
sources.
Yes.
It's called, you can only do papers from approved sources.
Yes.
However, I do not want to leave on this dark, heavy place.
Yes.
There are especially charter schools. So what I realized in Common Core was that this is the shocking thing to me, was that Common Core pulls out the joy of school. So the stories or the history, like they skip from the Revolutionary War to they skipped all of Black improvement efforts. They just skip them. Why? Because we don't want the joy. We don't want to hear that people attempted to make things better. Whether or not it worked is not the question, because I mean, I think it should be the question, but it's not in there because they don't want to hear that Black people were senators and Black people were congressmen, and
Yes.
they don't want to hear those stories. But there are schools that put it back in. There are schools that intentionally teach the classics, that that's what they're reading at lunch. They are reading classic, great literature that unites. And I believe that is the hope here, because what they're intending to do and what they are doing is quite frightening. And I mean, I think it's evil. I think that they say when they say colonization is evil, they're not wrong.
Yeah, but they're not
doing
seeing
it.
themselves.
Yes.
Do you have just a moment to talk about this sunrise movement? What is that? And should I share that real quick so that we
could
can
share,
just
yeah, really briefly.
Okay, let's share that, because I want to know what that is.
Sure.
I think it's this one I've got open here. Is it showing this? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So going up to the top, what is this sunrise movement that you've shared?
The sunrise movement is, they literally say, prepare for your cultural revolution. Our kids don't know, but to put this picture here that you've got with
This one?
No, the one underneath. I mean, that one's bad too, but
Oh,
this one
this,
underneath,
yeah.
and to pretend that that's stunning, brave, and powerful. Our kids don't know the story behind it. They
Who
don't
is this
know.
that put this out, and where is this shared?
Sunrise Movement. This is probably from Courage is a Habit, would be my guess. Courage
Okay.
is a Habit is Alvin Louis. Army of radicalized young missionaries who believe America is oppressive and needs to be dismantled. So, what they don't understand, and I really do have to go in about 2 minutes, but what they
Okay.
don't understand is that what they see as stunning and brave
Okay.
was teenagers going in and just
Okay.
destroying people's homes. They would go
Well,
in and,
this looks
yes.
like it's actually been put together by someone who's critical of this group, right?
So this one is, yes.
Okay.
So
So,
Courage is a Habit is a group that's exposing it.
oh, okay. Okay. So
I'm
that's what
I'm
that is.
surprised if you haven't talked to Alvin, but
No, I haven't.
okay, I know that um Ben has, but
Okay.
um
Interesting.
yeah, our future is not negotiable. These guys are being taught, they're being taught that a cultural revolution is stunning and brave right now
Yeah.
on Netflix. Right now on Netflix, they show the
Mhm.
beginning of the cultural revolution on one show. Um and
Mhm.
just the torture, the absolute destruction, and just killing everyone, destroying everything that they can under the name of progress. And what's happening right now is that our kids are guinea pigs in a social, all of this stuff, whether that be Common Core
Mm.
or whether that be ethnic studies, all of it points to the same thing.
Mm.
They're using our kids as guinea pigs. And that we have the ability to stop it. And what they don't want, which we should maybe talk about in another thing, is like schmoop. What they don't want is parents to know that's intentional.
Mhm. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'd like to get more context on it at some point. And the Liberated Ethnic Studies is, uh, I mean, that looks like the social justice. It's like the epitome of the social justice movement, just
On
all
steroids.
put into one place for kids.
It's
Right.
unbelievable.
Hmm. Well, I know Carrie's got to go, so we'll go ahead and close out. It's kind of a black pill sort of meeting today, but thanks for joining us in the chat, everybody, and I hope you all have a good week, and we'll revisit this in a couple weeks.
All right, you guys.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.